Hello internet friends, Snapyet here. In this video we're going to examine the world of G1 Transformers in the form of an alphabetical list. Alphabetical lists are great because they allow you to break down sprawling topics into bite-sized chunks. The internet, just like Unicron, would prefer its meals in manageable portions. But lists like these are also unique to their creator, which can lead to some surprising choices. That's the hope anyway. Basically, for each letter of the alphabet, I've chosen the most important thing I can think of in G1 Transformers. It could be a character, a place, a type of technology, or even a thematic focus of the storytelling. So settle in, grab a caffeinated or decaffeinated beverage, and let's list things on the internet. A is for the Ark. The Autobots' means of escaping Cybertron, but also their tomb for millions of years. If it were not for the Ark's automated repair systems, the Transformers would never have been reactivated, and the cartoon would have been a pretty boring affair, something about a volcano that might erupt, but never does. Instead, the Ark quickly became one of the most recognisable locations in the fiction, with its thrusters and gangway sticking out of the base of Mount St. Hilary. It was a place where the Autobots monitored Decepticon activity via the supercomputer Teletran 1, but more importantly, the place they hung out, along with their human mates. I don't know about you, but I would have sold my entire Star Wars collection as a kid in exchange for a chance of a sleepover at the Ark.
Autobots, transform! Not you, Bumblebee.
B is for Bumblebee. Physically the weakest Autobot, small and eager to please, Bumblebee quickly became the proxy for the Transformers preteen audience.
I don't believe this is happening!
Iterated upon in countless ways across many manifestations of the franchise since, Bumblebee continues to endure, transcending the fiction to become an iconic representation of the brand. C is for Cybertron. Planet ravaged by war and drained of its resources, Cybertron was nevertheless the place every Transformer yearned to return. The burning desire to see their homeworld once more became the driving force behind the Earthbound Transformers' actions, Cybertron coming to symbolise hope for the Autobots, that they might one day liberate it, and the key to galactic domination for the Decepticons once Earth's resources had been siphoned and redirected towards Cybertron. With its towering arcologies rising into space and luminous canyons hinting at the robotic life teeming below, Cybertron continues to be the most recognisable depiction of a purely cybernetic planet in science fiction to date. D is for Diaclone. The original Japanese toy line that Hasbro eyeballed and secured the license to. Rebranded and given a detailed backstory, the Diaclone toys were the jumping off point for a mythos and coterie of characters that have endured for over 40 years. Not bad for a bunch of car roboto.
Diaclone car roboto.
E is for Energon. Even more important than the desire to return to Cybertron, the search for Energon drove many plot lines in G1 Transformers. Hydroelectric power, energetic crystals, crude oil, and many other terrestrial power sources could be refined into Energon, and the Decepticons were relentless in their pursuit of new ones. It not only powered the Transformers' abilities and weaponry,
We don't have enough Energon cubes to power a full-scale assault.
it was essential for the most basic of functions, roughly analogous to food or even oxygen for humans. And at the start of Season 3 of the cartoon, we see the results of Transformers deprived of Energon, as the Decepticons scrabble for scraps of the precious resource in the wake of their defeat. F is for force fields. About as accurate a descriptor as lasers or thrusters, force fields nevertheless play a pivotal role in several G1 episodes, and the undisputed master of this nebulous technology is Trailbreaker. He saved his Autobot mates on several occasions with a strategically situated force field.
There's nothing like a force field to take the sting out of laser fire!
So the only question is, why didn't he use them all the time? Maybe they're like one of those cordless chainsaws that need recharging every 5 seconds. G is for Galvatron. It was difficult to imagine a leader who could supplant Megatron, but for me, Galvatron did it immediately. Cooler looking, more sleek and futuristic, but it was the voice of Leonard Nimoy that really sealed the deal.
I will rip open Ultra Magnus and every other Autobot until the Matrix has been destroyed.
When he grew up to begin in the cartoon, he'd been stripped of a lot of his gravitas and went around shooting anything that moved. It was difficult to see why the Decepticons continued to want this guy as their leader once he shot the majority of them in the back. H is for Hasbro, the monolithic megacorporation that has gobbled up competitors like a toyetic Unicron in its quest for universal dominance. Hasbro has shepherded the Transformers brand in the West since its inception. These days seemingly obsessed with creating cinematic shared universes, Hasbro continues to reach for the stars, while all its customers really want are well-made figures at a reasonable price. I is for Iacon. An Autobot-controlled city-state towards the North Pole of Cybertron, Iacon featured prominently in the very first episode of the cartoon, and its Great Dome was the location from which the Autobots launched in the arc. In the comics, Iacon is Cybertron's capital city, but by the time we get to issue 66, The Smelting Pool, we see that the Autobots are subsisting underground in what are likely the ruins of this once powerful fortress. J is for Jets. If we could choose our own alt form, I'm willing to bet 95% of us would choose a jet. The original Decepticon jets were largely defined by their abilities. Starscream was the best flyer, and he had his null rays. Skywarp could blink about the battlefield, and Thundercracker just made one hell of a racket. Later joined by the comically connotated Coneheads, the Decepticon jets remained a staple of G1 for the majority of its run, harrying the Autobots at every turn, even though none of them actually turned into a Harrier jump jet. I am a funny K is for Kojin, Kawamori, and Keiichiro Sakuma. The letter K crops up in a lot of Japanese toy designers' names, it seems. These are just three of the talented designers involved with the early development of Transformers. Kojin and Kawamori worked on many of the original Diaclone car robot designs, and Keiichiro Sakuma helped design the original mechanisms of Battle Convoy, better known as Optimus Prime. L is for Lamborghini. But also Volkswagen, Porsche, and the many other real-world vehicles upon which the Transformers' alternate forms were based. These alt forms became more futuristic and fantastical over time, but the original lineup was the best suited to act as robots in disguise because, well, they looked like any old Nissan. M is for Megatron. The power-hungry leader of the Decepticons, somehow Megatron remained a menacing presence despite suffering defeat week after week. Many an episode ended with his pained exclamation of, "Retreat!"
Decepticons, retreat! Retreat! Retreat!
It's remarkable he stuck around long enough to get to the movie, when he finally got his revenge.
I will be avenged.
Slaughtering many of those foes that had made him look like such a putz on the small screen. N is for Null Ray. Initially a special designation of weapon wielded by Starscream and singled out for attention in the early episodes of the cartoon.
Activate the Null Ray.
Yet it seems to have this fairly nebulous effect, freezing a bunch of machinery. On a couple of occasions it's used to knock Autobots out so they may be interfered with. Then it's used to make them all better again. It seems to me like a writer's ultimate weapon. Load it up with a plot problem and splatter the page with a neon purple solution. O is for, can you guess, Optimus Prime. Noble and brave, Optimus Prime was the rock the Autobots leaned upon, but despite his obvious aptitude for leadership, he was not without his flaws. At the end of the very first three-part story arc, More Than Meets the Eye, we see him unable to admit defeat.
Megatron!
He strips Sideswipe of his rocket pack in a foolhardy attempt to catch the Decepticons before they can leave orbit. An act that could easily have led to his death if laser blasts actually mattered in the cartoon.
I said I'm fine!
It was a laser blast that finally did him in, though. Something about the big screen makes them deadly, it seems. After he hesitated to fire on Megatron. Should he have taken the shot and risked killing Hot Rod? He was certainly incredibly accurate moments before flying through the air, gunning down Decepticons.
Double kill!
Answers in the comments. P is for Pink. Not only are female Autobots rare in G1, the ones that play a pivotal role are all pink. Okay, so it was the 80s and the toy aisles were even more delineated than they are today. Transformers were boys' toys, and woe betide the boy who took a wrong turn in Toys R Us. Pink was a warning. Here be girls. Yet I know from the analytics on my own small Transformers channel that 15% of my viewers are female. So the women are out there, hi, and I don't think they're all wearing pink. I'm not saying recolor RC or Elita 1, just make more girl central characters. Then the designers will be forced to choose another flipping colour. They did it for the background female characters in this very episode. Q is for Quintessons. Purveyors of a twisted form of jurisprudence, the Quintessons appeared to be a malicious race that passed sentence on their victims not in the name of justice, but for sport.
Innocent.
That's according to what we saw of them in the movie. One word sums up the later revelation that they created the Transformers: lame. They were much more interesting as this multifaceted expression of chaos, nonsensical and impossible to predict, rather than the bumbling idiots they later became. R is for robots in disguise, but not really. The cartoon ditched the concept pretty early, going full robots definitely not in disguise.
What is it? What are they?
The Dinobots, Omega Supreme, all pretty hard to miss, not to mention a bunch of fluorescent green construction vehicles that would regularly merge to form a mech on the nightly news.
Devastator says, Devastator! Devastator wants Devastator! Surrender or Devastator! Devastator!
But it was a fun idea and led to some quirky stories, such as Trax and Blaster pouncing on unsuspecting car thieves in the episode Make Tracks. They're working with the police in this episode, by the way, so this is technically entrapment.
Thanks to you, our Crime Buster program's a smashing success.
S is for Starscream. Ever ready to usurp Megatron as leader, yet on the few occasions he came close, he royally effed things up.
Megatron is a wimp!
So is Starscream!
He just didn't have the foresight or the people skills to deal with the troops.
Thundercracker! You putrid traitor!
Yet somehow he remains a fan favourite. I think it's because we identify with his situation. We all want a shot at the big time, a chance to shine.
I am Starscream the Mighty!
Yet how many of us would truly be ready when the limelight swung towards us? No, I think in reality most of us would go to pieces just like he did. T is to transform. Before the Transformers could transform, they were just robots. Products created to fulfill a purpose. Labour on the one hand, military uses on the other. Can you guess which of the product line became Autobots and Decepticons? Of course you can. According to the cartoon, it was the Autobots who first unlocked the power to transform, though, and this allowed them to defeat the militarily superior Decepticons. The Marvel comics tell it a different way. They say Primus granted the power of transformation to the Transformers in response to Unicron's discovery of how to transform himself from planet to robot. Whatever the truth may be, it seems one thing is clear. The difference between a robot and a Transformer is in the name. U is for Unicron. It's kind of interesting, to me perhaps only, that until Unicron showed up, there was no big bad in Transformers. I suppose technically it was Megatron, but he was around so much and beaten so often that he almost felt like just another victim. Of his own hubris, certainly, but also he was trapped on Earth like the others, just desperate to rebuild some sort of power base, and who can fault a dictator for that? Unicron's introduction changed all this. A seemingly unstoppable force, a god-level threat like Galactus or the Emperor in Star Wars. There had been stakes at times in the cartoon. Every device or scheme Megatron dreamt up seemed to have world-ending potential, but none of them ever worked. There was little doubt Optimus would discover the route to victory. But in the movie, Optimus died. So did all his best mates. Not at the hands of Unicron, admittedly, but when your best fighter is taken out of the picture in the first act and a monster planet is looming down, it really did seem like Unicron might win. What could a glowy blue disco ball do against this robotic Satan? We know now, of course, for a planet-killing robot, swallowing the Matrix is like eating a bunch of sweaty prawns for us. V is for vintage. The original Transformers toys will always have a special place in my heart and many others. It was an eclectic line cobbled together from multiple Japanese toy lines into a somewhat cohesive whole. Although even as a child I sensed something was awry. Why was Shockwave so flipping big compared to the others? And what was with Skylynx? A space shuttle that could split into a cat and a sort of angry pigeon? Some were motorized, some weren't, some had lights, some didn't. You never knew what might come out next with vintage Transformers, and maybe that's part of the reason it was so successful. W is for Whit Wiki. The Whit Wikis were just your average Spikes or Busters caught up in the galaxy-spanning adventures of the Transformers. Proxies for the watcher or reader, Spike or Buster, were both older than the fiction's adolescent audience and therefore somewhat aspirational. They had friends and potential girlfriends, while Spike or Buster's dad, Sparkplug, was the father we all wished we had. He supported Buster and Spike.
Yes, don't call me that!
What happened to Spike and Buster's mum, I guess we'll never know. X is for Zaron, brackets Emirate. Emirate Zaron was a diminutive but also ancient Autobot, valued for his wisdom and leadership rather than any sort of prowess in combat. He created the Wreckers, a sort of Autobot dirty dozen, who took on the most dangerous foolhardy missions. It was a big part of the Cybertronian lore in the UK Marvel Comics, but featured less in the US, and therefore today remains somewhat of an obscure character, but a favourite of UK fans who remember those stories. Y is for Yearning. To return home, to secure energy, to prove themselves to their peers.
I never wanted to do anything against my fellow Autobots.
We know.
To not let their soldiers down.
This is crazy, Prime. You'll never catch it. I'll be back, Jazz.
We've already talked about the many things that motivate the Transformers. These yearnings that can be very personal drive the plot of many episodes. It's remarkable, really, how many stories revolve around the desires of a particular character, and it's probably why the Transformers cartoon and the comics were so successful. Good storytelling is ultimately about character. What happens to them, yes, that's the plot, but it's really about how those things affect them and what they want, what they yearn for, and whether they get it or not. Z is for Zeta Prime. I thought it would be easier to find a Z in G1. Surely there was a G1 Transformer called Zoom.
Zoom. It's refreshing in a big way.
Or a Decepticon that transformed into a Zamboni. But no, apparently it's pretty difficult. So this is another deep cut. Apparently this guy, the fifth mysterious inhabitant of the Matrix, is apparently Zeta Prime. And who exactly is Zeta Prime? Basically no one at the time that the cartoon came out. This is a massive retcon from the Allspark Almanac Volume 2 that took Transformers fans and probably the writers of this very cartoon completely by surprise. So we've run out of letters, but this isn't the end. There are many more A to Z's we could do. The A to Z of stupidest episodes. The A to Z of times that Starscream was Skywarp and there were too many Thundercrackers. The A to Z of reasons why, despite its silliness, G1 Transformers remains a favourite continuity for fans, both young and old. Thanks for watching, guys. I've been Napyet, and I'll see you next time.